a lot of divorces are caused because of financial issues, or that's a big factor. What types of finance related things should be or should have been discussed before marriage?
I think it's important that they both understand each other's thoughts about money and their investment philosophy, their money story, which is a whole nother conversation we'll touch on a little bit later. But you want to make sure you're on the same page. If one is a super saver and one's a super spender, that's going to be a conflict potentially. So I always encourage what we call money dates, where you go out maybe once every couple months and you don't make it this big, heavy conversation, but you just say, hey, where are we at right now financially? Are we on track? Or do we want to change something? Are we paying off our debt if that's an issue? Are we investing properly? Are we looking at our investments, and are they allocated, the assets, are they allocated correctly? And so it's just that light conversation, but it's very important that both are on the same page. Even if one spouse happens to do most of the transactional work by paying the bills manually or they're investing manually, they both should be in that conversation, and they should absolutely both know where every asset is, all the investments, where that money is held, the passwords. And I say that because I've had some situations in the past where a husband passes away and the wife didn't know the passwords to get into the account. And in some cases, she didn't even know that they had accounts and where they were. So that just needs to be addressed up front. And it's just one more way to just make that connection so there isn't that conflict.
Hey everybody, welcome to Perpetual Motion, a podcast for lifelong learners who share my passion for ongoing personal growth by improving their communication skills, relationships, finances, and wellness. I'm your host, Dr. Mo Anderson, and my guest for this episode is Patti Handy. Don't you just love that name? She is a force to be reckoned with. She's a certified executive coach, certified life coach, real estate broker, and a multi-published author. Her journey, however, is one that transcends the titles and accolades. And what truly sets her apart is her unwavering passion for empowering divorced, widowed, and single women to become financially independent. In a world where financial empowerment can be a beacon of hope for so many, she's a guiding light, helping women navigate the stormy seas of debt and inflation. So whether you're in search of financial wisdom, life lessons, or simply a dose of empowerment, you are in for a treat, my friend. Get ready to be inspired.
You can't say Dr. Mo ain't tell ya that fear magnifies the consequences of failure. What are you scared of? Why are you afraid? I'd rather live like I'm dying than live to die. Any day, my heart is pure, my soul is safe.
Welcome, Patti.
Thank you, Dr. Mo. I appreciate that so much. That was quite the introduction.
Yeah. Well, you're quite a woman. You've got an impressive resume and you're doing some really great things. Empowering women, motivating people is one of my passions as well. So we share that, and I have been looking forward to this. Let's just jump right in. Let's do it. Can you tell us a little about your journey, and particularly what made you leave great careers in mortgage advising and financial advising to become a financial coach?
Yeah, great question. So I was in the mortgage industry for many years and really enjoyed that. But the mortgage industry is somewhat transactional, and there wasn't the opportunity to go deep with relationship building. You are in a conversation for 30 or 45 days while you're buying a house or refinancing. And unless the client came back to do another refinance or whatnot, it was not that deep conversation. So I wanted and longed for that. And in financial planning, which is something I've always thought about doing in the back of my mind, I knew that I would go deep with those relationships. I would get to know those clients. And so when I was an advisor, I did just that. It was wonderful. I mean, I knew everything about the individual or the couple, and I knew about their kids, and I knew about their hobbies and their fears. And, as an advisor, you understand everything, and it was wonderful. But I had lots of conversations with ladies that would come in or call in who were divorced or widowed. And there was a lot of fear around money. There was a lot of embarrassment and shame. They would say, my husband took care of it. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm overwhelmed. I'm afraid of this whole world. And this was just recurring all the time. And I thought, I'm just going to jump and take a leap of faith. And that's what I did. I left the financial advisory world and went into financial coaching and just took that leap of faith.
And you love it?
I love it. Oh, yes. Yes. It's
It-
definitely more impactful. And I love the one-on-one with the clients and going deep into their, situations. And as a life coach and financial coach, there's a lot of that,
Mhm.
financial strategy conversation, but there's a lot of the life coaching piece, which is, very personal and very, you just see the transformation and it's really cool.
Yeah, I can see the overlap there. That's interesting too. I've interviewed a lot of each, but no one who combined those two skills, and I can certainly see how they complement each other. I know you primarily focus on providing financial advice for women who are single, divorced, or widowed, and there's certainly a need there. But let's talk first about those who are married or contemplating marriage, because a lot of divorces are caused because of financial issues, or that's a big factor. So what types of finance related things should be or should have been discussed before marriage?
I think it's important that they both understand each other's thoughts about money and their investment philosophy, their money story, which is a whole nother conversation we'll touch on a little bit later. But you want to make sure you're on the same page. If one is a super saver and one's a super spender, that's going to be a conflict potentially. So I always encourage what we call money dates, where you go out maybe once every couple months and you don't make it this big, heavy conversation, but you just say, hey, where are we at right now financially? Are we on track? Or do we want to change something? Are we paying off our debt if that's an issue? Are we investing properly? Are we looking at our investments and are they allocated, the assets, are they allocated correctly? And so it's just that light conversation, but it's very important that both are on the same page. Even if one spouse happens to do most of the transactional work by paying the bills manually or they're investing manually, they both should be in that conversation. And they should absolutely both know where every asset is, all the investments, where that money is held, the passwords. And I say that because I've had some situations in the past where a husband passes away and the wife didn't know the passwords to get into the account. And in some cases, she didn't even know that they had accounts and where they were. So that just needs to be addressed up front. And it's just one more way to just make that connection so there isn't that conflict.
I think that's great advice. And I've been on the side of that where I was the primary, person taking care of the financial stuff. And yeah, some people have more of an aptitude for it, but honestly, it's also a burden too to be totally responsible for that. I think that should be shared in some manner to the extent possible. But I've seen it as well, just with accidents. You just don't know what's going to happen, and you can't assume that you're always going to be able to just sit back and go shopping or whatever it is you do, and somebody's going to be there to take care of things. And that can be a very hard lesson learned for the person left behind.
Yeah, it's also very empowering too. When you have that knowledge and you have that confidence, it's empowering. It just puts you in a better place.
Exactly. And I think it helps the other person who may not be the financial person to kind of stick to the budget a little better. When you have no idea what the cash flow is, the expenses and the income, you can just, go out loosey-goosey. Now, if you still go out loosey-goosey, you just don't care. But I think it helps even with my kids. Once I started bringing them into the conversation, they were like, Mom, can we afford this? They would say it really loudly too. It was embarrassing, but I love that they were getting the concept of things cost money. We work for money, and let's not get in a lot of debt. So, but I digress, as I always do. Okay.
It's all good.
So after I think you kind of covered this. How can both partners be involved? So those money dates, and, I was just saying maybe the one who doesn't have as much of a financial aptitude can, take on some aspect of it. What are there other ways that they can share other than just having this conversation if they want to share that duty?
Well, I'll share a quote and then I'll answer that. There was a
Okay.
quote that I heard recently that men look at investing as a challenge and women look at investing as a threat.
Oh, my.
Now, that isn't necessarily, in my opinion, a overall arching statement for everybody, obviously.
Right.
It's, the other way around in some cases. But I found it very interesting that I heard that most women are, find investing as a threat because it's just something they don't know, they're not familiar with. But, as we had said, I think it's just so important to sit down together and have that time and make sure you're on the same page so that you don't have any surprises. I've seen different things, where there's a one pot for all of the expenses, and then you each individually have your own fund money, and that way, the husband or the wife or whoever is not saying, well, you shouldn't be buying that. It's like, well, no, I'm using my fund money. I can do whatever I want with that money. But we have enough to pay the bills. We have enough to invest. We have enough to save. All those priorities are done first. And then you each have your fund money. So there's different ways that those relationships can work with money. But it's coming to those agreements together, having that a common conversation and a common agreement. So one or the other isn't the one saying, okay, we're going to do it this way. And this is the way it is. Because that's not good.
No, that's not. And that's almost a dictatorship type of situation. Nobody wants to be treated like a child, but you need information. So I like that. I like that. Those are both good tips. So we've talked about what married couples can do before marriage and during marriage to be more invested in the financial picture. But we know that divorce rates are astronomical, and I'm part of the 50-60% of divorced couples. And you said something when we spoke before that was very interesting to me. You said, if you're not divorced, you don't understand divorced life. Explain what you mean and why it matters.
I think once you go through a divorce, you evolve into this person that you weren't before the divorce. And for the most part, it's better. You've evolved. You've proven your resilience. You've proven your bravery, your courage. You build strength, and you step into your greatness as you are doing life alone. But I had wonderful, wonderful support when I had gone through my divorce. My sisters, I had wonderful friends. But those friends who were divorced and who knew the emotional side and the trauma and the grief, they got what I was saying. They heard me completely. And as much as my sisters were priceless and I love them to pieces, they're both happily married, and that's lovely. I'm blessed to have such wonderful brothers-in-laws. But those friends of mine who were divorced, and I had a little one. My son was 18 months old at the time of my divorce. So there was a lot of fear and overwhelm on my part and dark days. There was just a lot of clouds, and those people who got it just knew what to say and helped me kind of get out from under that. And I would imagine, I don't know what it's like to have lose a spouse to a passing. So I can't speak to somebody who was, a widow. Right. However, I understand what it's like to lose a love and to do life alone. And those things happen in both the worlds of being a widow or divorced.
Right. I think it's just important for people to realize you don't know what you don't know. And I've found when I've been through some difficult situations that people, whether it was a health matter or grieving or divorce, that people who just have no idea, have had no, similar experience, maybe something they read or a movie they watched, how they felt so free to make comments and judgments. And, I've lived long enough to see a few of them go through similar circumstances. And it's amazing how much more compassionate and how they change their language around being more understanding. So I don't wish that on anyone, but you just have to keep in mind that it happens, and it's just not fair to judge people or to offer up advice about something you don't really know about.
100%. Yeah. It's about just showing support and love and being for that person. But as you said, no judging, no, shoulda, woulda, couldas, none of that.
Right. Really don't have to say anything is my thing. Just give me a hug. I really don't.
Just sit there and hug me.
Right. I've got a therapist. So thank you. I've got a passionate therapist. I'm good. So, and a really supportive tribe, as you shared. That's the thing is to, don't you think, is to ensure that you have relationships
Oh,
outside of
God.
the ones in your home?
Oh, yes. Oh, my gosh. Yes. The friendships, like you said, the tribe, it's priceless. It's such a gift. It's such a blessing. And I always say, lean on those people. They want to help you. They want to be there for you. Don't feel like, oh gosh, I don't want to call them again. I keep calling them with, this or that. No, they want you. They want to see you happy and they want to see you flourish. And if they can be a part of that, if they can help support you, that's a gift that you're giving them. So reach out. Yeah.
Absolutely. I'll call my friends. I'm like, I need an unhappy hour. Y'all just meet me over at
I love that. Unhappy hour. Fantastic. I'm going to have to steal that from you.
So they're not surprised when we get there about the topic. I'm like, come on, I need to talk. I need to vent. So
I love it.
Patti, you said earlier that you alluded to that women and men react differently to dealing with matters, investing, financial matters after divorce, or even the way they view the divorce in your experience. Can you shed some light on those? What you've experienced? Of course, it's not universal or global, but
right. I think with women, I see more. Well, I'll say that women tend to wear their feelings on their sleeves more. They express their fears, they're vulnerable, their insecurities. They'll share that. And again, this is not a global statement, and it's not a man bashing by any stretch. But typically, men, even if they are insecure and feel vulnerable and are afraid and don't really understand investing, they may not necessarily admit to that and say, I'm really embarrassed. I don't know what I'm doing when it comes to investing. Women would, generally speaking, from what I've seen, will say that. And they'll say, I need help here. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't even know where to start. Where men will just jump in and do it, and they'll kind of figure it out along the way. And again, not globally. This is not a blanket statement by any stretch.
Right.
But that's generally what I do see. And I have seen in, the years of between being in the mortgage business and talking money and, in the financial world, was just kind of interesting to see those dynamics.
And there's a large body of research to support that, even, whether it's in the boardroom or the classroom, how men will speak up and speak out or ask for a raise. So it's, it's not just here. It's in a lot of ways in the way, our culture is and things we're pushed to do. So it's important to point those out so that we can do better for the little girls coming behind us.
Yeah. And I think we are doing a better job. I think the younger girls, I'm seeing the, 20, 30, 40-year-olds, they are coming in a little more confident. They are coming in stronger, and they're seeing, the empowerment of women. And there's a lot of, there's a movement in that.
Yes.
So that's a beautiful thing. So I think, our next generation will be very different than our current generation.
I agree. And I want that for my granddaughter. And we were talking about TikTok earlier. They actually have TikTok finance. I've learned some things, just, little brief 60-second or however long, 90-second TikToks, just little tips here and there. And I'm like, oh, I didn't know that. I never thought about that. And it's a great way for, the younger generation. I think more Gen Z, Y, and X are watching those. But I think all of these factors are coming together in addition to moms and grandmothers like us who are saying, no, you need to know, you need to be involved.
Yeah.
So.
But you know what? On that note, I've seen some of that information online. I'll see like in Facebook groups, a person will ask a question and then somebody will answer. I'm like, that's not correct. That's not the right answer. So be careful if you're online and you're watching the YouTubes, the TikToks and whatever. Make sure it's a resource that you trust and it's not just somebody, talking. Because it can be a very expensive mistake if you follow advice from somebody who may not necessarily know the true laws and the rules. So
right. And that's a great point, because I am selective about who I watch. I'm not just scrolling through, picking everyone out. And I didn't think to say that. So that is a great point. I'm going to check out their credibility indeed.
Make sure. Yeah.
Yeah. What first steps would you recommend for women starting over after losing a significant others? Because like you said, there's a lot of grief, emotionally, physically, there's a lot you're going through, but at the same time, you have to go on and you've got to be able to take care of yourself. So say you were one of those women who just was not real involved, kind of had a little bit of clue, but not real involved. And now you find yourself totally responsible for everything.
Yeah. So the first thing I would say is don't make any financial decisions while you're very fresh in this process of divorce, when there's emotions running high and you're in this kind of cloud and you're still grieving. Emotionally, you're still just trying to figure life out. That is not the time to make a big financial decision, because you're going to probably make the wrong one. And you've got to be really careful when it comes to your money. So step back, a lot of self-care, a lot of taking care of yourself. Unless it's something that is absolutely 100% required to address now from a financial perspective, see if you can kind of just postpone that. If anybody's trying to, rush you into buying a product, that's a big red flag. You just need to walk away from that situation. You need to just make sure that you've got 100% of your senses and you're able to really understand what it is that you're doing with that money. After you've kind of come out of that darkness and you are moving forward, get a good handle on where you are today as far as your net worth, your cash flow. So look at what's coming in, what's going out, whether that's a formal budget. You've got to really understand cash flow. If you're upside down every month, if you're moving forward, if you've got, money to spare to invest, you've got to get a really good understanding of what's coming in and what's going out, and then where you are net worth. So all of your, after divorce, what your share is of all your retirement accounts, your other assets, if you own real estate, whatever it is that you came out of the divorce with, what those look like. Because that's your start of your roadmap. It's like you go on vacation and okay, well, I live in California, I want to go to New York. But if I say I'm going to take you to New York and I'm going to drop, I actually said this in a social media post. If I were to blindfold you and plop you in the middle of the country and then remove your blindfold and take away your phone and GPS and your map and everything, and I say, okay, now get home, you're going to say, well, where am I? Right? That's the first question you're going to ask. And so very much like that, when you are starting out, it's like you got to know where you're starting from a financial perspective.
Good point.
Where am I right now? And then I need to know, okay, where do I want to go by when? So I've got X number of years before I want to retire. What do I need to do between now and then? What has to happen?
Got a couple of follow-up questions. That was a great answer. One is, I want to go back to, you said avoid big decisions while you're in that dark place, because a divorce, losing a spouse, is a different type of grieving, but psychologically we know that there are, stages of that you go into grief, and there's stages of grieving. Can you give some examples of big decisions that you've seen people make? You mentioned don't let anyone force you into buying one. Particularly, I've seen people get an inheritance and, here comes everybody. But what are some examples of big decisions you should avoid?
Well, taking your assets, let's start with the house. If you need to buy or keep the house, or you need to sell it to buy your husband out or spouse out, whatever, try to determine with the advice of a CPA what those tax consequences are and what that looks like. Understand that fully. And then, post-divorce, when you have these assets in your hand, you've got your share of the retirement accounts or your share of the brokerage accounts or whatnot. Don't go and just walk into a financial advisor and say, here's my money, invest it for me. You want to know what it is that it is being invested in. I am, generally speaking, a proponent of working with the CFP, which is a certified financial planner, and they charge based on how much they're managing for you. I prefer that over somebody who is a product-based or commission-based advisor, because they're making commission on the product they're selling. So if they're selling just annuities or insurance products, not to say that those aren't good or bad, it's just that those are more complicated and there's a lot more moving parts to those. And that may or may not be a good investment for you. Okay. And you're not in a position to understand all of those investments to make that decision. And even, months later, when you're at a place where you can invest or have the wherewithal to make those decisions, if you're being sold a product that you don't understand and you can't turn around and teach it to a fourth grader, you shouldn't be investing in it.
Oh.
Because that's, especially when it comes to annuities and different types of insurance products, there's so many layers to it and there's so many different nuances to them.
Mm-hmm.
And they're evolving. The annuities today are different than the annuities 20 years ago. So if you can't understand it and explain it to a fourth grader, then you probably aren't in a place to really invest in that, at least not now, until you understand it completely.
Right. Oh, great. Thank you. And then another follow-up question to that, you talked about, understanding your debt and your income. But I find some people are not really calculating in the credit card debt. What role does that play when you're looking at, your worth? And go ahead.
Oh, it's 100%. You look at assets and liabilities. Liabilities is your credit cards. You've got, if you've got $10,000 outstanding, that's a liability that goes against your assets.
Right.
From a cash flow perspective, you got to look at what you're, paying monthly on these cards, and not just the minimum. You want to be able to pay these things off, quickly. So that's that cash flow piece. So the credit cards are absolutely right in there with your insurance, your property taxes, your utilities, your gas for your car. I mean, everything. That's just absolutely a line item that must be addressed for sure.
Sure. And I asked that because a young lady came to me, and I'm not a financial advisor. I'm happy to share what I know, but I also refer people to my CFP. And she was like, I want to start investing, saving for my retirement, early 20s. And she's, we're discussing things a little bit, and she's got student loan and about $8,000 of credit card debt. And I'm like, well, I want you to start investing and saving, but this 18% interest you're paying over here has to be addressed. That you can't pretend that doesn't exist and just start, so it's looking at all of those things. And what you said makes a lot of sense. This final question before we start talking about how people can connect with you and obviously get some more really great advice. Look what you're giving here, just out of the goodness of your heart. But this one combines your life coaching and financial coaching arenas. And I want to talk about mindset. What about the mindset in relationship to money makes it difficult for some women, and I dare say men as well, to make decisions about investing, that they just leave money sitting in a savings account or on the table, or just, are very nervous about investing?
Yeah. Dr. Mo, this is my favorite topic because it is truly the most important. This is the foundation of our financial freedom or not. The relationship that we have with our money story, our money beliefs, that is an internal work that has to be done before you deal with the external world, which is the mechanics of money, if you will. So before you start to go look at investing and paying down your credit and rebuilding your credit score and some of those mechanical things, and those are really actually quite easy to learn. Once I teach those and people understand it, you've got it. You now know it. But if you don't have the money story in place and that relationship in place, it's going to be a challenge. So one of the first things you want to do, and I work with clients on this, is really unpacking and getting a full understanding of what are some of the financial, their life things that you heard, but financial, we're going to deal with money here. What did you hear growing up? So from birth to age 8, you are a sponge. You are taking everything in. You are taking all of what you hear in as truth. Mm-hmm. So if mom or dad or aunt or uncle or grandma or whoever says money doesn't grow on trees and rich people are greedy and some of those things that we hear, right? You're going to have this lack or scarcity mindset when it comes to money. Mm-hmm. Also, something that we don't talk about a lot is that we have ancestral issues. So there's issues that are in our DNA from our ancestral years. This is fascinating. I'm going to share something with you. There was a study done with rats where they put them in this container and they infused the smell of cherry blossom. And when they did this, they also shocked their feet, their paws.
Oh, no.
Okay. And they did that several times. So now they felt that whenever they infused this is the smell, they had the shock. Okay. The rat's grandkids, for lack of better words, I'm not sure what the formal word is for a rat's grandchild.
Oh,
But
no,
you know, the rat didn't tell their child to tell their child, but they put these grandchildren rats in the same lineage into a box, a container, and they infused the same blossom smell, and the rats freaked out. But they were not frying their
and they
feet.
had, oh my,
There was no activity to their paws. And it was fascinating because it was an experiment in how things that happened from our prior generations,
right?
that trauma. So that trauma is carried with us. So if we have grandparents or great grandparents who went through trauma, and we had the Great Depression in the 30s, so we probably have people here that have grandparents or parents who went through the
Holocaust.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So that trauma is in part of our DNA. So part of that is understanding that and being aware of that, and then going, okay, I understand that my grandfather went through this, or whoever, that happened to them. My money story is different. I am not going through that experience myself. And we start to unpack that. We start to unlearn those false realities.
Right.
And we relearn and we reprogram our subconscious mind. At the end of the day, 95% of our external experiences and our external world is a result of our subconscious mind and the workings. So it's kind of like the huge iceberg underneath the water is the subconscious mind, and the little piece above the water is the conscious mind. So again, this can be a several hour conversation, but I cover this at length with clients, because the money story in that relationship is the starting point to the financial freedom, the financial wealth, and having that place of that confidence.
Wow. That's fascinating. That's fascinating. I had heard that theory. Well, it's been proven, alluded to in regards to like the Holocaust and slavery and other things people went through, the Great Depression, as you said. But I did not know that particular research had been done on mice. That's incredible. That is just incredible. And I believe it too. I believe it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll say one other thing. Our minds, thankfully, are programmed for survival. Yeah. And that really comes back to the caveman days, right? They just needed to survive. They weren't looking to thrive. They just didn't want to be eaten by the saber-toothed tiger, right? They needed to get food. They wanted to be, protect their family. And so that has been a protective mechanism in our mind to make sure that we are safe and that we are secure. So it's good. We want our mind to protect us. It's kind of like when you're walking through a dark alley and you see this person, you're like, I'm not feeling really good. That's your subconscious talking to you like, get out of there and go somewhere else.
Fight or flight mode.
So your mind's doing the right thing, but it's also working against you sometimes when it comes to the money piece. If you're only looking to survive because you're in this lack and scarcity and worried and fear place, you're never going to flourish. You're never going to have a life of abundance and prosperity.
Very nice. Very nice. I feel like I should pass the plate. That was that was a sermon right there. I love it. I love it. And I say the same thing when I go hear Les Brown. So that's a compliment. And very, very well stated. Well, before we go, Ms. Handy, Patti Handy, that's Patti Handy, how can our listeners connect with you online or off and learn more about your coaching services, and where can they buy your books?
So the website is a great place to start. It's just my name, PattiHandy.com. And on the homepage there's a free download. It's an ebook that I wrote. It's Women Soaring Solo. It's a women's financial guide. So download that. And then there's about a 30-minute training that goes along with it, that goes into a little bit more of this money story conversation and some more training. On my contact page, there's an option with my calendar to book a call with me, and I do offer a complimentary 30-minute call, and we can have a conversation, learn about my services, learn about you, and see if I can assist you. And if I can't, I'll tell you who to talk to. I'll steer you in the direction of who to talk to. And the books are on Amazon. Yeah, all my books are on Amazon.
Very good. And congratulations on all of your accomplishments. But as an author myself, I'm impressed by a multiple published author in addition to all the other things you do to help other people. I mean, you've clearly got a heart for others. I appreciate what you've shared here today. And it's been a delight having you on the show.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate being here.
And thank you all as well for listening, for tuning in to another episode of Perpetual Motion with Dr. Mo Anderson. We post every Friday. In the meantime, please visit my website at drmoanderson.com. That's DRMOE Anderson.com to learn more about my services and my books. Until next week, be well and be safe. Thank you.